Okay.
Do you
Okay.
mind? Oh, never mind. Jake already started. But do you mind if we're recording this? Is that okay?
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Awesome.
So I was invited to specifically talk about my experiences in the different schools that I've taught. I've taught at 3 different high schools, and they're all very, very different from one another. So let me screen share with my cute slideshow I made. Shout out to Michaela. Michaela has introduced me to the world of extensive slideshow themes that are too extra, but beautiful. Oh, hold on.
I should have just given you permission.
Okay. Okay. Yep. No. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Michaela is student teaching with me right now. So, and Jake is a former student of mine. And Jake, I do have some pictures of you in this slideshow. So
oh, no.
I just wanted you to know. Okay, so one of my first things I wanted to start off by saying is that teaching in general is interesting because it really is a theatrical profession. No matter what it is that you're teaching, you've got a captive audience, and you're performing almost every day. You really have to be on. You're kind of on stage every day. It's a performance. So maybe you're in the right place if you like performing and you are passionate about education and theater. I think teaching theater can be really, really rewarding, and it can fulfill that like performative part of what you're drawn to theater for. I hope that makes sense. It's a really good picture of me. My mask. Because it's not comfortable, unfortunately, but it was such a good purchase. Okay, so my name is Anna Nickel. I graduated from IU in 2011, and my degree is in theater education, which they don't offer at IU anymore. And then my minor is in English, and I completed the praxis to get my license in English as well. That was based on the advice that was given to me by my advisor in college, and I'm glad I did that. There are pros and cons to that, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I'm currently certified to teach theater and English grades 7 to 12. I chose THED. I don't have like some crazy inspiring story. It was more because I have always wanted to be a teacher. That's kind of the very first tick box there. I really knew that I has been involved in education some way, somehow. And I loved doing theater in high school. And even before that, doing performing arts based things. So those kind of just naturally fit together, and that's where I kind of landed in theater ed. So I wasn't sure actually when I went into college what I wanted to teach. So it wasn't until my sophomore year that I was like, yes, theater, it's happening. I've always considered myself a teacher first and a theater practitioner second. I think some theater teachers would flip that, and I don't think that that's wrong. I think that either way you approach it, you can be a successful theater teacher. I do think that there are a lot of things when you're teaching theater that if you're not passionate about education and about teaching itself, can really wear you down. I hope that makes sense. It's not as creative maybe as your work in like a community theater could be, because you're not just doing theater, you're also doing this teaching part too. And it's really like you're doing 2 jobs at once. But I'm not the kind of theater teacher who does like community shows too at the same time that they're teaching, because how can you do that? You're crazy, but also that's amazing. Okay, so my teaching experiences, like I said, have been really varied. I student taught at North Central. So for those of you familiar with the Indianapolis area, North Central has a fantastic theater program, and they've had a long-standing tradition of that. I also student taught in Canada, which was interesting and is always to talk about with me. So if you get the opportunity to do something like that, it's a really good resume booster. I was only there for like 3 months, but they always want to talk about it. So obviously that was interesting. I wasn't doing a lot of theater there. It was more English-based stuff. I've taught at South Putnam High School, which is in Greencastle. That was my first job out of college, and Decatur Central in Indianapolis. And now I'm currently at Fishers High School, which is in Fishers. Okay. So let's start with South Putnam. You've probably never heard of this school before, and that's okay. So it's actually a junior high and high school combined building. And the high school has about 380 students total, which is super small. It's very rural. It's just outside of Greencastle. I don't know if you guys don't know where Greencastle is. It's about an hour west of Indianapolis, and it's where DePauw University is. Greencastle High School is bigger than South Putnam, but there are 4 high schools in the county, and South is like the smallest one, I think. It's 95% white. Obviously, probably could guess that based on where it is, and 37% free and reduced lunch. So I really liked teaching there, actually, surprisingly, shockingly. It was a really good environment for several reasons, but I wanted to leave because there were really limited opportunities for me there with theater, and I didn't want to live there. So I wanted to live in Indianapolis, so I wanted to move. But I was happy there. I mostly taught English. That was the other part of the issue. I knew I wanted to do more theater stuff, and that just wasn't going to happen at South. But I taught English 11, 11 advanced creative writing journalism, English 12, and drama 1 and 2. And I was the assistant director to 2 productions and the director of 2 productions. We did straight plays. We did not do musicals. Someone asked me to direct a musical there, and I laughed in their face. I said, that's not happening. It's not going to be a thing. We do not have the budget for that. I think our budget was seriously like $500 or something. I know I got paid $500 to do the play, to direct it. And I think that our our club budget was like between 500 and 1,000. I don't even think it was 1,000. That's not a lot of money to put on a show. So, especially not a musical, that's like not even possible. Anyway, I created the co-curricular programming. So those drama classes, I proposed those and then eventually was able to teach those. And those were a lot of fun to teach there. The kids at South were really, really kind. I think that there were a lot of students who really needed that creative outlet. And because of that, they were drawn to the program. I also had to teach every single junior in the building because I was the only junior English teacher. So they all got to know me, and I really like working with juniors and seniors. Juniors are the sweet spot, you guys. For those of, I'm sure you probably had some experience with different grade levels. Juniors are the best ones. They're amazing. So here are some challenges and successes I had at South. There were definitely some ideological differences with some of the students there. It was pretty difficult to deal with. It was a really conservative area. And after I left and things with Trump began to escalate, that the teachers that I am still friends with who continue to teach there said it was pretty bad. So I'm glad I got out when I did. That made it difficult with some kids. It was a very conservative area. Definitely a lack of resources situation. It was lovely. So that's just not going to be conducive to some great theatrical stuff. It was pretty low pay, and the location, I didn't want to live there. So the good things about being at South was that I was really able to develop a lot of skills as a teacher before adding all of the extracurricular load, which was really helpful. Starting out as a full-time theater teacher with a big program, if you're not prepared for that, could be extremely hard because you're really doing 2 jobs and you're there at the school all the time. So you don't have the time that's necessary to prep your classes on top of the extracurricular stuff. So it was good that I was able to do that. Unfortunately, most of the classes though were English, so that didn't really translate to my next job because then I was teaching all theater classes. But like some basic classroom management skills and stuff like that definitely carried through. I was able to develop relationships with students who were generally kind and really in need of that creative outlet, like I said, and I'm still in touch with a lot of those kids. I also developed relationships with a lot of the staff as well. It was such a small building with a lot of young teachers because, hey, you got to get somewhere when you're out of college. So there were a lot of people my age, and I'm still friends with them. They're like my group of friends still. A lot of them have moved to Indianapolis too. I also had the opportunity there to make mistakes and learn and really create my own curriculum because there wasn't anybody else teaching what I was teaching. So I was able to get creative and have some guidance from people who knew what they were doing more than I did. So that was good. I do think that when you first graduate and you're looking for jobs, it's important to keep an open mind, which can be hard to do. Like I did not want to live in Greencastle. But I was desperate to have a job. And sometimes you have to just kind of work your way up. I've always felt like I have something to prove. I don't know why I feel that way, but that's really driven me. I think you have to find your thing that will help you be motivated and stay motivated. I've always wanted to like impress everybody. It's always been I don't think that's necessarily healthy, but that was certainly the case there too. So I was happy to have the opportunity, but I was also happy to have the next one. So these are some production photos from South Putnam High School. Wow. Wow. The flex, the budget, the cafetorium situation with no sound system. The strip lights, people. Yes. So the two shows I directed there were The Diary of Anne Frank, fantastic play, you guys should direct it, and the Odd Couple female version, which was also a lot of fun. That's the set for that. And you'd be surprised, the kids at South were actually really good actors. They really were. They did a good job. All right, Decatur Central, moving on up. Next stop. The student body at Decatur is about 1,800 kids, 180 to 1,800. That's a pretty big step up. Also, I didn't say this, but I went to Franklin Central High School, which is in Indianapolis, if you guys are familiar with it. And it's about when I was there, but when I was there, it was smaller. So I'm used to this kind of size of school. The 380 thing really threw me off. Okay, so Decatur's really an interesting place, isn't it, Jake? It really is. It's hard to describe. It's urban, rural, and suburban all at the same time. The district, if you're familiar enough with Indianapolis, 465 is the interstate that kind of makes this loop. And we always refer to like the donut, and the donut is just outside of Marion County, but there's also this inside of 465 and outside of 465 dynamic that happens too. And the general rule is if you're outside of 465 tends to be like wealthier, but if you're inside of 465, that's where it's more like urban sprawl. That's really more like the city. While Decatur's district falls both inside and outside of 465, and it goes up to the county line, which is really rural. So you've got all of these different kinds of people coming from different neighborhoods. It's also 70% free and reduced lunch, which is a lot, There's definitely a lot of kids in need. And it is 69% white. So mostly white. I taught almost exclusively drama classes at Decatur, but as you can tell, if you look at this kind of spread, this list of all the classes I've taught, I'm going on my 11th year of teaching now, and there was only 2 years back to back where I taught the same thing, which is really hard, really challenging. And I've got some more thoughts on that when we get toward the end of the slideshow. But having to change your curriculum every year is on top of changing the shows and the extracurricular programming is a lot. It's a lot of work. So I wish that my schedule could have stayed closer to the same. And I think if I had stayed there longer, it would have. But yeah, the having to plan stuff for dramatic literature, which was a required freshman course. English 9, advanced theater arts, technical theater, advanced technical theater, playwriting. There's another class that I can't even remember that I taught I can't remember what it was called, but it was some other creative theater thing. And then obviously drama 1 and 2. For the extracurricular programming, it was pretty typical of what high schools tend to offer. There was a musical, a play, student directed 1 acts. We had 2 coffee house productions. I'll talk a little bit about that too. Those are great fundraisers. We had a comedy sports team, thespian society troupe, and then we did theater awards at the end of the year, and we were a part of this department-wide holiday spectacular show that got put on every year. So that's a lot of extracurricular programming on top of a lot of classes taught, which, my friends, leads to burnout. It sure does. So some of the challenges at Decatur was that I was doing everything on my own. We had a fine arts secretary, which didn't actually happen, I don't think, no. That was like the last 2 years I was there. So I was there for a total of 4. We only had that person in place for the last 2 that I was there, but I was doing everything on my own. Lights, sets, publicity, budgeting. I had some help with the sets, but that changed and that varied in skill level. Jake's laughing. So all of that was really up to me and the students in my classes to take care of. I found myself sacrificing my classes for the extracurricular program some, which as a teacher me doesn't like doing that, but it was necessary in order to get things done. I felt that I was overextending in order to build programming, and a lot of that is my own fault. But a lot of it is just not having the support that's necessary, because when you're in this theater position, the people who are not in it with you don't understand it. So you might as well go ahead and get used to that now. They don't understand what you do. It's important that you advocate for yourself, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of pressure. There tends to be a lot of pressure on performing arts programs to do well, because you are a really visible part of the school in the community and beyond. So when you're successful, it leads to the success of the school. And they want that. Administrators want that. I want that because I want my programs to be successful and I want the kids to have all kinds of opportunities to perform. But that can, when you're doing that on your own, it's really not possible. And I think that a lot of administrators don't understand that, because they're not theater people. Why would they understand that? They've never taught choir. They've never taught theater. So it's important to be the advocate for yourself. And also, I think there were some ways in which I could have taken my time that I did not do. I was full speed ahead, and that could have protected me, I think, a little bit from that burnout that I'm talking about. Another thing that contributed, though, at Decatur was that there were a lot of classroom management issues. There were a lot of students who were difficult to deal with. And when you're trying to do something great and put on a great show, and the stakes are high, having classroom management issues to deal with it really detracts from that quality of work. I had like Jake, who made up for that, but like in my beginning theater classes, oh my gosh, you guys, the stories. The stories. Some successes from the negative to the positive here. The theater budget, the club budget doubled in 4 years. And that was just through adding programming and increasing the program visibility and the performance quality. So more people were coming to the shows. There were more shows in general. I added those coffee house things, sports matches, those things that are like $5 tickets a pop, right? Those are good, easy, quick fundraisers. So when I got to the school, the club budget was $10,000. When I left, it was $20,000. And 20 is a really great place to be. That's a good, nice number to have a really solid program and be able to put on a decent musical. So I had a really great group of dedicated students who were very motivating for me. They really were dedicated to the program, and that made me want to work. So that was nice. I think as a whole, we got a lot of positive recognition from the community and from my colleagues. It was always coming to the musicals and would shoot me quick notes and things like that. So there was definitely a lot of community support. Also, Decatur has amazing secondary theater facilities. So I had a fantastic classroom with like a full kitchenette because, you know, you're living at the school, so you need the kitchenette. The auditorium was nice. The lighting was still pretty, it was conventional lighting. We didn't have LEDs or anything in there. The auditorium was fine. It was good. We did have a Vortec machine that ran the all of the fly systems. So all of the battens were operated through a computer. That was great. Shop was a little small, but that's pretty much the story everywhere. The costume shop was great. The dressing rooms were amazing. Boxing wasn't a classroom. So the secondary facilities there were great. Here are some production photos. I wish I had better pictures of all of these shows, but that's fine. This is from Almost Maine. This is You Can't Take It With You. And her hair, that was a dress rehearsal and her hair wasn't done. So don't judge that. That wasn't the final project or product. And then this is from The Great Gatsby. There's Jake. Yay.
Wait, Jake, who were Gatsby?
I was Tom.
There's some more production photos from some musicals there. Jake was scary. Hold on. Okay, so we had Legally Blonde. There's a picture from Legally Blonde, Addams Family, and The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz was the last show I did there, and that was like a $17,000 or $18,000 show. We made them back, but you had to build that budget up, like a $12,000 budget. So then we did Addams Family the year after, and then we got to The Wizard of Oz. And here's a really good picture of Jake from Comedy Sports Match. So we were able to utilize the black box. We used the black box for comedy, and the student directed one act. So there's and then this is a picture from the Holiday Spectacular show that we were a part of. It was a departmental show, and it was really more for the choir and band programs. But one thing that always kind of really irked me, and I really liked my colleagues there. That's another thing I didn't mention. I really liked theirs a lot. And it was always the theater's responsibility to decorate and to do all the tech for this production, which that didn't bother me. But what bothered me was right after the musical was to put on some kind of show, like for this. And I always felt like ours was groups because we just didn't have the time to make it good. So I think it's a good example of knowing what to expect when you're working together in a department. It was just an expectation that had several years before I got there, the theater was part of this production. And that was because I guess if it were up to me, we would have just been responsible for the tech for it. Okay, now I'm at Fishers High School. So my overextending myself is what new job searching and leaving Decatur. Part of that was, again, just kind of classroom management stuff. Another thing was just out. I was doing too much. So I really wanted to find a position where I had some help. And Fishers, the job at Fishers opened up, and Fishers has a tech director, a full-time tech director. And that was like, okay, let's go. That made a big difference to me, made it really appealing. And so far has been fantastic. So Fishers is a lot bigger. The body is 3,384, 73% white. So it's almost the same as Decatur, which is kind of surprising. It's a really wealthy suburban area, and it's only 18% free and reduced lunch. The classes that I teach are Theater Arts 1 and 2, which are each a semester long, Theater Arts 3 and 4, which are each a semester long, advanced theater arts. And right now I'm teaching a theatrical production class, but the numbers for that, well, first of all, they want us to maintain numbers while there's a pandemic going on, but that's another story. The numbers for that have dipped for next year. So they're going to combine the advanced class with the production class, I think. I think that's the plan. So I'm not sure if that class is going to be happening or not, but it was a new class that I proposed anyway. So it's kind of no harm, no foul. The extracurricular programming as it stands right now, we have a musical, a play, student directed 1 acts, 2 coffee house productions, an award show, and a drama club. I am taking my time to grow this program, unlike what I did at Decatur, which is like pedal to the metal. I'm trying to take my time. So I've got a new system for how we're going to run drama club next year. And eventually I'm hoping within like the next 4 or 5 years, we'll have a nice thespian troupe. Comedy sports is on the table. It could be a thing that happens, but what I know about it is that if I'm going to do it, I need to pay someone to help me run it. So another teacher, another faculty member. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for other programming too. It's just a matter of growing the program first and then creating those opportunities rather than creating the opportunities and expecting the program to grow. Okay. So some challenges and successes at Fishers. And first of all, I've only been at Fishers for 2 years. And so a whole year of that has been during a pandemic. So I haven't had a full normal year at Fishers yet. So that's an interesting challenge. The students aren't in need at Fishers. And I wrote that that's good and bad. And obviously it's great that students aren't in need, that they're not hungry, that they're not, you know, all of their basic needs are being fulfilled. They tend to have pretty good home lives. That's great. The downside of that is that they don't need what you do as much. They don't need you, which sounds weird. But having those kids that like live and die in the theater wing can be really motivating for you as a director. And it's not that there aren't kids like that, but they have a safe home to go to. Like the theater wing doesn't have to be their home, if that makes sense. The other bad thing about it is that because they have great home lives and they have these parents who are very supportive, sometimes the parents can be a little overzealous. And I haven't had a lot of parent problems, but the show choir directors have, and I know that the person who I replaced did. So I'm just kind of like biding my time and waiting for it to happen, for like parent zillas to occur if a kid doesn't get the part that they think they deserve or something. I'm having to develop a program at Fishers more than I expected to have to. You think of Fishers and I think everybody's like, oh, it's this big fancy school and it just must be amazing. Yes, but it's also a young school. It's only been around since like 2010, I think, 2007 maybe. So it's been about 10, 13 years that the school's actually been in existence. So it's young. And so because of that, there's been some struggle to establish something that's like stable. And I know that the guy that was teaching before I got there was also teaching all the mass media classes. So he wasn't the exclusive theater teacher. And that makes it hard to build a program because you've got your hands in too many different places. And then the guy before that was also the head speech coach. So then it's speech and theater. It's not just theater. So I know that the effort that's being made by the department, by our department head, who's also the technical theater director, is they wanted to change the schedule before I was hired so that I was teaching all of the theater classes, and then that would help expand the extracurricular program too. So that's kind of interesting. I actually think it's kind of a good thing that there's not this established program, because then I can do what I want. And I've learned from my mistakes at Decatur about how to grow the program correctly. I can really make it mine, but it's also bad because I just didn't expect to have to be doing this work again, but I'm not necessarily bothered by it. So it's very much in flux. And because of all of that, because there's not really this program established, a lot of things are in flux, and I'm having to make a lot of decisions and adjustments, and that can be hard. So like I said, this theater production class that was existing for a year is probably not going to next year, and having to make adjustments because of that is challenging, something I wish I didn't have to do. Just because I'm ready for some stability. I have a lot of help, which is great. It's also bad. It's also bad. Maybe not bad, but challenging because you're working with a lot of different personalities, and that can be interesting. So we just got done with the musical production, and there were so many people helping me with that. And because of that, the show was great. But you feel sometimes like you're just managing, like you're a head manager or something of a company, rather than like the artistic part of the directing thing. So it's good and bad. There are some culture challenges that need to be addressed. We've got students, showing up late and like talking during rehearsals and just like little things, but those are fixable. It's just going to take a couple of years to get those things fixed. It's such a big school that it can be hard to get word out about who you are and what you do. Definitely. So if you're at a big school, that's something to think about. How can you really establish a brand and make it visible? And how can you lean on your colleagues to help spread the word? I also think that compared to Decatur, Fishers actually has pretty weak secondary facilities. My classroom is the black box, and it's also not really a black box. It's like a big LGI room with stage lighting. It's weird, but the auditorium's fantastic. And we've got nice new LEDs and a new sound system. So I can't complain when it comes to the auditorium. One more challenge that I didn't put on here is that we've got a big performing arts department, and the theater program hasn't really established itself. And now it's having to compete with a band program that's fantastic and a choir program that's fantastic. So you're kind of elbowing for space. And when it comes to sharing spaces too, that can be a challenge. Like the auditorium is used way more by both of those groups than it was at Decatur. So I'm finding myself having to compromise a lot more. But I like all of my colleagues a lot, don't get me wrong. They're great, but they've just been able to grow their programs more quickly, establish themselves more quickly, and they're competitive programs, and people like that. And when you're winning trophies, kids want to be a part of that. So okay, so successes. I feel like teaching during COVID is a success. Yay, I succeeded. Okay, and directing 2 COVID shows has been a challenge that has been rewarding too. It's been good to have that sense of normalcy with the kids. We've done fully mass productions, but other than that, the productions have been pretty normal. The musical especially. I mean, they're in masks, but I'm really looking forward to growing the program post-COVID. I'm excited about the possibilities and the things that we can do. The first musical production will, and I think after that, your musical is your test. It's like your test by I felt a lot of pressure for it to be good because I have this thing there, I want to prove myself. So I felt a lot of pressure for it to be good, and I'm glad that it went really well. I felt like it was a really good show. And it's alike, and I've been waiting for 1.5 years to get that buy-in because our schedule has been weird, and because of all the cancellations because of COVID. The kids at Fishers are angels. There are no classroom management problems. Teaching there is so easy because the kids will do whatever you're asking them to do, and they're really independent workers, and they just do a great job. They're a lot of fun, and they're ready to, most of the time, they're very ready to participate. So that's been good. I love the teaching part of being at Fishers. The extracurricular part still needs a little bit of work. And I have a ton of help, and I have money to pay people. So there are a ton of stipends that I have access to, and I can dole those stipends out how I want. So if I want somebody to do lighting for musical, I can give them a stipend to do it. I have a ton of money to play with. That's great. That's what I needed. Okay, here are some production photos from the shows at Fishers. So last fall we did Our Town in the Black Box, and that's a picture from that. These pictures are better than the other pictures. We did the Brothers Grimm Spectaculathon in the fall, and those are some pictures from that. It was special. I would not say that I think that's a good script. In fact, I do not think it's a good script. but it's fun and silly and like just for like a COVID show and when everything else is ridiculous in the world. Well, and I'm glad I picked that one to do then because we had the two leads were gone for like 2 weeks because they were quarantined and it was a mess. And then this is a picture from the Addams Family, the show that we just wrapped. So. All right. I've got 4 slides of this, people, because I learned some things and I've been given advice I think is worthy of bestowing on you guys as you're starting out your careers is learn your lighting. When you get a job and you've got to run, you need to get in that summer and play with the light board and make sure that you have a repertory plot that you can continue to go back to. So you can do special hangs and stuff. It's really helpful for a high school. Did it kick me out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Okay, let me pull that back up. This internet is really bad. And like, okay, so I'm at my boyfriend's parents' house, and of course they have an internet password that's like 1,000 letters and then 1,000 numbers. So I'm just using my hotspot on my phone. It's a mess. It doesn't happen again. Okay. So learn your lighting. It's a relative high school auditoriums are already going to have the equipment. It was just, and if you've got conventional lighting, then it's just up to you to buy gels and get where you want to be early, establish some sameness. One thing that I wish I had been to Fisher sooner. I don't know if I would have didn't have some of the experiences I had. I don't think I would have been a good candidate, at theater at the years that I did. But in this position now where I'm going on my 11th year, and like I said, there's only been 2 years where I taught the same thing back to back. So I want to try to establish some sameness, not just with the extracurricular programming, but with my classes as well. Because that will really help. So if I've got assignments that are the same for Drama 1, my Drama 1 class is pretty much done. Like I've taught that for long enough now that I've got a good system for that. But having all of that available on Canvas for me to just publish and know what I'm doing the next week so establish that sameness, try to get where.
Of course, it's like the part where she's like, let me tell you all this great advice I've learned.
Something to try.
Oh my gosh.
Try keeping your camera off and just use your audio. That helps with connection issues.
Okay. There's a picture from me from high school show choir. You're welcome. Okay, hopefully this helps. Establish that sameness. I think is really important. I'm learning how to do that. I'm also trying to delegate some more things to students. So I hate doing it's your favorite thing to do. Delegate that. I've also learned that when it comes to consider maybe not doing a cast list on the back and just do like a front logo, because the names single cast shirt and then they get all salty about. Oh my gosh. Can you guys hear me? Can you even hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Did you hear me talking about the names on the show shirts?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And ranting and raving about it?
Yeah,
Yes.
Penny, if you just want to talk from your PowerPoint and then send us that PowerPoint as well. That way you don't have to share your screen and use that connected thing.
Okay, let me drop it in the chat. Hold on. Okay. So the other thing that I think is worth delegating are poster designs. And the students can really do a good job with poster design so that you're not having to come up with something. You can even make it a class competition or class assignment as part of a production unit or something. And then trying to establish parent helpers early on too is something that I wish I would have done a better job at Decatur, and that I'm trying to do a better job of at Fisher. So I've got a parent who is also an employee at the school who's going to start helping me next year. And I'm putting her in charge specifically of dealing with parents and organizing parent help. Okay, support other programs at the school, because that's going to get you some visibility. So I know Jake was like I don't know if you guys know this fun fact, Jake, I'm sorry if I'm calling you out, but Jake was like the spirit leader at Decatur. So what was that job called that you did?
The Hawk Block leader.
Yes, the Hawk Block leader. So like the drama students were really some of the most spirited in the building, and when the way they would go to football games and stuff like that and really show up to support other programs. I think that's really important, because then people will show up to support you. I said look out for show choir, and here's why. Your kids in a drama program are going to be involved in show choir, probably. There's going to be a lot of crossover. And if you've got a powerhouse show choir program at your school, you're going to have to do a lot of compromising with those directors for those kids' time, which sucks. So show choir is not as big in some states, and schools not. Show choir maybe is, I think, Jake, can you hear me?
You're yeah, no.
No?
No,
Great.
it was like, oh, now you're coming through.
Now you're good. Okay. Did you hear me talking about show choir?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah, just
A little bit.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel like the 80-year-old person who like doesn't know how to run Zooms. I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
Okay, so my boyfriend's mother teaches dance, and she's like, oh, I've done Zooms in this space before, like it should be fine. Okay. Well, she's also like 65, so anyway. Okay, so yes, so I was talking about show choir, watch out for show choir, but also work with those show choir directors. You guys, I don't know if you know this about performing arts people, but sometimes performing arts people have a reputation of being difficult. I don't know if you guys knew that. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's earned, sometimes it's a deserved reputation. So get on their good side, be willing to work with your colleagues. The last thing you want is some weird animosity between the choir director and theater director, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot. So be wary of that and try to make friends with your colleagues. Oh, crabs and backdrops. Okay, so one piece of advice that I heard that I thought was a really good one is to, if you are not a tech theater whiz, I am not, you don't know how to build, I can build a bird cage and that's about it. Not bird cage, what am I trying to say? Like a birdhouse. You could have some people help you build a crab. So you know that like traditional, you've got the platforms in the back, and then you've got stairs or ramps coming off the side. That's what I mean by a crab. Get somebody to help you build a really solid, good crab. So nice stair units, nice ramp units, and some nice platforms. And you can reuse that configuration for like every single musical ever. Okay, so get somebody to help you build a crab, and then utilize backdrops. If you've got fly space, don't be afraid of getting some pretty backdrops, because they can really make an impact and it makes your life a lot easier. I know when we did Addams Family at Decatur, I ordered the Addams Family backdrop set it was like screen printed so you could backlight it, and it was really visually stunning because it was all part of one set. So it was just nice, and then I didn't have to worry about building as much. So that show ultimately looked better because we were depending not on my construction abilities. Okay. I also have a theory of high school theater to start with getting your students interested. So start by spreading the word to the students at the high school. You want to recruit people from the high school and you want them to think that it's a cool program to be a part of. So start with those students. Then bring in some kids from the community. So whether that's through like drama camps, you do some outreach to the middle schools, or you've got kids in to participate in one of your shows. Like we had Munchkins and The Wizard of Oz. That's a really great way to bring those parents in. You get more visibility, and then you can expand out to the community. So, really putting, getting word out through local newspapers. And I know like the Fishers, I don't even know what it's called, but the Fishers newspaper always wants to interview me for shows that are upcoming, which is great. But putting yourself out in the community and trying to get some of those gray hairs to come in, some of those silver blue hairs to come in to see your shows too, so that they're not just going to Beef and Boards. They're also coming to see your high school productions. So students, kids, then community. Okay, I have also learned that teaching theater is often more like stage management than directing. So if your goal in life is to be like an amazing artistic visionary director, high school theater might not be it. Yes, there are definitely opportunities to be creative. I'm not saying that, but you're really doing a lot of people management, and the organization part of it is going to ultimately lead to more success than the artistic part of it. I hope that makes sense. I heard this advice from the band director at Decatur. He once told me, look, Rome wasn't built in a day. And this guy had been at Decatur for like 25 years, had built up this great band program at this school that you wouldn't expect that to be the case for. And he said, you need to take some time to build your program. You're trying to do it all at once. And he was right. He sure was right. Yes. So I like that advice. Rome wasn't built in a day. And I'm trying to remember that as I'm trying to build stuff at Fishers. I think no matter what, you need to put yourself first. Create the boundaries that you need. So one of the boundaries that I create, I hate small talk and I hate like schmoozing people. So I do not go to open houses. It is my rule. I don't go. It's just something that I don't want to do. And if I go to one open house, I'm going to have to go to all the open houses, and I'm not doing that. So I didn't even go to Jake's open house. But I do special stuff for the seniors. I do some recognitions for them in different ways, but I'm not going to show up to your open house. Sorry. I think having limits on when students can contact you might be helpful too. You can put your office hours thing on remind. So if you have a remind group, you don't get that message, or, the kids expect that you're not going to reply at 10 p.m. or whatever. Taking some time for yourself to unplug, working over the summer is a great thing to do. It's a great way to get ahead of the curve, but at the same time, you need to take time for yourself to rejuvenate and recharge. Put yourself first, put your needs and priorities first, and don't be afraid to ask. All right, schedule your classes so that you have time to work. It sounds kind of weird to say that when you're at work, you don't have time to work, but that's really the case when you're teaching theater. If you are 3 weeks out, and 3 weeks is my magic number when I'm thinking about a production, 3 weeks out is when I'm usually having to do the most desk work for a production, because I've got to worry about programs, t-shirts. I've got to worry about making sure final props lists are done and making sure we're getting tech stuff organized. So all of that is desk work that needs to get done. Plan a big project for your classes to do so that you have time to sit at your desk and work, because otherwise you're not going to get it done. So if you're playing drama games and doing a bunch of activities with your kids all day, you're not going to have time to actually do the job that you need to get done. So be smart about your planning, because you can open up chunks of time to allow yourself to get things done, because that That's the nice thing about teaching theater is nobody's hovering over you saying, you have to meet this standard by this time. So you can do what you want to do in class and what you need to do in class to get things done for shows and stuff like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with watching Shrek the Musical every now and then. I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with that. It's still a valid theatrical experience for those kids. Don't be afraid to ask for stuff. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And I know that I have always asked for help from other theater teachers in the area. So I've gotten costumes from the directors at North Central and at Southport. And at Decatur. I borrowed something for the Addams family from the guy at Decatur that's there now. I've asked for help from the teacher at Noblesville because she runs a really great thespian program. She does a great job with that. And so I've asked her for advice and help with that. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. I don't care if you've never met them in your life, email them. They will help you. It's a community. And we all need to really lean on each other to help each other because we're all our own little islands in these schools. So the nice thing about being at Fishers too, I didn't even say this, is that there's a sister high school in the same district, and there's another theater teacher there. So we can really lean on each other a lot, do some professional development even with each other. We don't teach the same classes, but he knows what he's doing and he's a good resource. So don't be afraid to ask for help and ask for stuff. Branding and visibility, make sure people know who you are and what you do. I think logos are helpful for that. You know, swag and merch can be helpful for that, you know, as you're growing your program, getting word out there. Okay, let's see. Relationships matter. That's something I've really learned. Not just relationships with your students, but relationships with your colleagues too. And they can really help keep you motivated. If you're having the worst day ever, having a group of students who is there for you, and not there for you, like they don't need to be your emotional support, even though Jake was mine sometimes. But they are there for what you're doing. They're living for what you're doing. They're there for that. That can be incredibly motivating, and having colleagues to be that emotional support can be helpful too. I know I've leaned on my colleagues a lot. Plays are easy, musicals are hard. And a coffee house or a talent show, I could do it in my sleep. Those are so easy and you earn so much money from those. Definitely do some kind of coffee house or talent show. If you guys don't know what a coffee house is, it's just like, it's what it sounds like. You sell coffee and pastries and stuff, and it's like an acoustic talent show. The teachers at my high school did it, so I just copied their idea. Yeah. And you can easily do it in a black box space. So you don't have to reserve an auditorium. You don't have that conflict of time. It's great. And I'm going to team up with the art teachers. I'm going to try to team up with the art teachers to do like a gallery walk too for coffee houses. Plays, musicals are just the hardest thing you're going to do. They're going to be the hardest thing on your calendar. They just involve a lot more people, a lot more moving pieces. You need a really great vocal director because while you can work the acting part, you need some other people on your team to do that music part, unless maybe you're a vocal director too. I don't know. Maybe you are. That's amazing if you are, but I'm not. And I'm also not a choreographer, as Jake knows. So it's really important to have those people helping you out as well. Just knowing that managing all of that and making sure your vision is still the one that's coming across can be challenging. This is another thing I've learned that I think is interesting. You really have one of the hardest jobs in the building when you're the theater director. And it's because you are running an extracurricular program by yourself that is not just one season, it's the full year. So it's not like being a coach of like a one season sport. You're a 3-season coach. And you also probably have more preps than any of the normal, what am I saying? Not normal, but like gen ed teachers. The gen ed teachers probably have 2 or 3 preps a piece. You might have 4 or 5. So you have more classes that you have to prepare for, like different classes. And the more preps you have, the harder it is. The more different classes you have to prep, the harder it is. Plus, then you have a season that you have to plan, an entire extracurricular program that you have to run. And that program changes every single year because you're working with different material every year. It's hard. And it can be easy to be bitter about that when you see people leaving at 3:30 and you're like, I'm going to be here till 10. It can really be easy to get bitter about it. It's hard. It's important to be in the mindset where you don't, and you remember the why of why you're doing what you're doing. Make sure you're organized. It's going to be a bad news bears situation for you if you're not organized, and whatever way that looks for you. Another piece of advice I have is to keep some petty cash on hand. So one of the first things I did at Fisher's was I asked for a money box to keep cash in, so that when we have cash sales and transactions, I just keep a part of that pot in the lockbox. Because then if I need to go out 2 nights before a show because a prop broke, because a bald cap broke, and I need to go get another bald cap the day of the show, this really happened, I have cash in the drawer to just pull from to go do that. And I keep a record of it. I keep the receipts and stuff, but it's just really helpful to have the cash on hand if they'll let you. And most of the places, all the places I've been have let me. 3 weeks out from a production is your most stressful time. Like I said, I think the 3 weeks is actually worse than Tech Week. For me, Tech Week is just, okay, the show has to happen now. There's nothing else left to do. But the 3 weeks out is when you're still in control of making sure all those pieces fall into place. So keep that in mind and work a week ahead. That's another big piece of advice. You do not want to be scrambling during Tech Week. Your week before Tech Week should be your Tech Week. Work a week ahead, and work a week ahead of your classes too. I always plan all my classes a week ahead. Okay, lean on connections for potential jobs. So the job I got at South was just a miracle that I got that one. That one didn't, I wasn't leaning on connections for that. But part of the connection at Decatur was that my dad had taught there formerly, and some of the teachers there remembered him and they recognized my last name. At Fisher's, there was my mentor teacher at Decatur went to Fisher's. So I called him when I saw that job opening and asked him about it. And he knew a lot about it because he still works some with the performing arts teachers. So lean on those connections, work who you know. Like I said, I don't care if you've barely met them, okay? Lean on those connections and ask people for help. Don't be afraid to ask. Switching schools is hard. It's like teaching your first year all over again because there's a whole new culture and system that you have to learn. So remember that too. You don't want to be switching all the time because that's just going to add to your stress. My parents are retired teachers, my dad and my stepmom are. And my dad told me that there's kind of this unspoken 10-year rule where you want to be where you want to be by year 10, because after that, you start getting too expensive and school districts aren't going to want to hire you. So if you can get into a good school, try to do it by year 10, 11. That's some good advice. Use your summertime to plan. I like trying to plan all my shows in the summertime, reading through the scripts. And I always pick the scripts before the end of the school year, but I use the summer to plan. And this summer, I'm really going to try to plan out my blocking and stuff more than I have in the past. I'm going to try to use my summer to do that more because you don't have time once school year starts to do stuff like that. I know that I've worked smarter, not harder too. This isn't on there, but I've always had my Drama 1 students read the play that we are going to perform in the spring. That way I have like 4 more opportunities to read through the script, and it's just worked in as part of my school day. So bye, Kayla. She didn't hear me, but bye, Kayla. Again, push yourself, have something to prove. Whatever that chip is on your shoulder, flex it. Work it to your advantage. Oh, this is something that I definitely need to do a better job of. Keep your files organized and take better pictures, take good pictures of your productions, or have somebody take good pictures of your productions. Wish I had better pictures of my shows, especially from Decatur. And then my files are a hot mess. When I first started teaching, everything was still on paper, and now nothing's on paper. So I have paper and nothing on paper and everything in between. And I just need to figure out a good system for organizing all of that. Michaela's like, yes, you do. All right, I like this Oscar Wilde quote. I think just is reflective of the why for me. I regard the theater as the greatest of all art forms. It's the most immediate way in which a human being can share with another the sense of what it means to be a human being. You guys probably heard that quote before. I just think theater as an art form gives us this unique opportunity to be empathetic and to teach empathy and to teach connections with other humans in a way that other art forms don't, and in a way that English doesn't either, that reading a novel doesn't either, because it brings the story to life and the people to life more. As far as social media goes, I like Twitter a lot because I think it's really functional for pushing out information. Kids don't like it anymore though, so I've started trying to use Instagram more. Michaela's been helping me because I'm an old person. But Instagram can work too. It's just harder to link stuff on Instagram. That's the problem. I have a website though. I made a website for Theater Fishers and that has been great. So my plan moving forward is that I'm going to run the website. I'm going to have the drama club president run the Instagram, and then I'm going to have the parent president or the person who's being paid as a parent is going to run the Facebook page. So that way I'm not running all of it. And also I have no idea how to work Facebook. So there's that. I want nothing to do with it, but that way I'm only concentrating on the main part of it and then delegating. And parents like Facebook, obviously that's where the parents are. So I think having a Facebook presence is really important for that reason. Okay, so now I'm at the end of this presentation. Wow. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble on with my unstable internet. I really appreciate that. Do you guys have any questions for me, or is there anything that I can expand upon, or I don't know if you have questions, specific questions about the places I've taught or about finding jobs? I know that's something that I feel like I didn't get a lot of talk about in college. Michaela.
Thanks, Miss Mickle. My question, because the people that are still here are all juniors and they're going to be student teaching next year, and they may or may not know what really to expect. What would be your biggest piece of advice or something that you I don't know, just think that they should know about student teaching ahead of starting that step?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. Number one, you guys can request where you student teach, right? Sort of. Michaela says no. You mean you're gonna request me? I'm kidding. I would try to get as much control over that as you possibly can, because that's going to make or break you. And you want to make sure that you're student teaching with a good mentor teacher. So like I picked North Central on purpose because I knew that they had a good program and I wanted to be there. I said Floyd Central, and my advisor was like, haha. And then I said, okay, then fine, North Central's fine. So I just knew, I think knowing where you're going because you want to be at a good program is important, but also knowing what to expect for the workload, because your student teaching experience is going to be the most beneficial for you if you do it to the fullest extent, meaning you're there whenever your mentor teacher's there and you're doing the same things that they're doing. So you're going to be at rehearsals, and if you're there during a musical, buckle up, because that's like I said, that's the hardest thing that they tend to do during the year, and it's the most time consuming for sure. So I would meet with your mentor teacher ahead of time too. So once you know where your placement is, make sure you meet with them so that you know what your schedule is going to look like, what classes you're going to teach, and what the shows are that they're going to be doing while you're there. If you're in Indianapolis, most of the schools in Indy do their musicals in the fall, and the spring is the play and the one acts and all the other stuff. So like when I was at North Central, it was during the one acts and speech. So I wasn't there during the musical, which was probably good, but I went to see their musical in the fall because I wanted to see what their program was doing and who the kids were. So that's another thing you could do, is really try to get your foot in the door ahead of time. And that's going to be impressive to your mentor teacher too. I also think communicating with your mentor teacher about what you want and about what you need, because if they're on day one, they're like, here's my classes, I'm going to go drink my coffee in the teacher's lounge, and they're just leaving you to, that's not effective. That's not helpful for anybody. So they should not be doing that. I think that's really unprofessional, actually. So if that happens, or if something like that happens where you're not comfortable with the workload that you're being given or what you're being asked to do, tell them that. You need to advocate for yourself. But I think having like an established idea of what it's going to be like ahead of time will help with that too. So meet with them ahead of time and know where you're going. Don't go to what is it, Minocqua or whatever, Mononaqua, Mamma Mia. Don't go there.
I'm pretty sure they're getting rid of that placement for us.
Interesting. If you ever want to come to Fishers.
Well, I think you pretty much you covered so much ground in the last bit of your PowerPoint. So those are a lot of the questions that we would ask like other people that have come and talked in. So thank you for all of your advice. There's a lot of really good stuff there.
Good, I hope so. Don't be afraid if something comes to your mind, whenever, if you're teaching in Central Indiana after you get out of college and you've got a job here, contact me. If you need costumes, contact me. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid. So keep my contact info, because if you ever have a question arise, I'd be happy to help you. You need that. You need that. Like I said, we're all little islands. We have to build that community ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much. That was very informative. I was writing things down. I was like, oh, perfect. I got to make sure I remember this.
Yeah,
Good. I hope it was at least somewhat helpful.
Yeah, it was a great one to end on, because you're technically now our last person of the semester, because we had to cancel.
Wow.
So it was a really good one to end on.
Good. And good luck to you guys as you're moving into student teaching, and then obviously job searching after that. It can be a stressful time. So good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, it's nice to meet you guys that I didn't know, and those of you who I do know, nice to see you. Michaela, I'll see you Monday.
It was really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Nice to meet you guys too. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry, my internet was bad.
That's okay.
All right, have a good weekend, guys. Bye.
Thank you.